the Wizard of Oz. Behind he is a whiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever, oh, ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does. You're off to see the wizard.
Well, all right, Yahsinni is in the house and back again with another reading that I thought was important enough for me to share with my subscribers or whomever it might run across this video. And I understand that you don't get to totality of what I've been trying to give you for a long time now. But we're gonna beat this straw man down. So, um, without further ado, the Redemption Manual. Let me go ahead and share. The Wizard of Oz, the coded movie of what really happened to America. Yeah, you didn't think I was going to tie this all in? Please. And so this is the PDF version, the 4.5 edition. And you can just Google it yourself and do the same thing I'm doing. And I'm going to share my screen with you and show you that it's not even less. You have by now swallowed the red pill and you want to see the whole truth. So all of this is going to part that like the foreword or something. It was the foreword, the introduction, all of that stuff I skipped. So you can go back and read it for yourself. Or just wait. I'll probably read it at a later date. You can wait for the introduction and the foreword, the preface, and all of that, the notice. Or you can jump right on in to the Wizard of Oz. And let's find out how we're going to relate this to the Redemption Manual or the story of America and what happened to it. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to skip all of that, go straight to the movies. Yeah. Y'all like movies? Let's go to the movies, man. Let's go to the movies. And so we go to the movies for entertainment, maybe to get away from the reality of our world. And just for a few moments, we escape that reality and enter a twilight zone, if you will, of adventure, romance, and the like. But is it possible someone is trying to tell you something? Is there, full disclosure, being made on the silver screen? Are you aware of the message or have you been oblivious? Following our movie reviews on The Wizard of Oz and The Matrix movies, they are presented herein to allow you to understand really what has happened and what to understand. Ladies and gentlemen, The Wizard of Oz, the coded movie of what really happened to America. And this is by Robert Kelly. So, just as you can read between the gory lines in the newspaper on any given day in America, you can discover clues and truths slipped in by the powers that be. Yeah, if you look hard enough as to what is actually going on. Such notice can be found in somewhat lighter fare. The movies. As you well know, Movies have become the national pastime of entertainment. Millions go to the movies. VHS tapes and DVDs fill in the rest of the gap. So the storyline, topics, and time frames vary as to the manuscript and the vision of the directors. Yeah, he who wins writes the book, makes the movie. So, such a movie was, quote, The Wizard of Oz, end quote, an allegory for the new state of affairs in America in the 1930s following the stock market crash and the factual bankruptcy of the United States government immediately following. So, The Wizard of Oz movie is not just a movie for children, though perceived today it is, and has become a national icon of an historical nature, replayed every year on television just for the children. What is missed by most is the symbolism in the movie and almost every character and aspects of the set and so-called special effects and props back then. Okay. So after reading this article and then seeing the movie again, it'll never be the same to you or your children. So the setting was Kansas, the heartland of America, the geographical center of the USA. In comes the twister. Boom, the tornado. Yeah. Whirling confusion of the stock market crash that left everybody economically dizzy. It signified the theft of America's gold, the coming U.S. bankruptcy, the Great Depression. So the tornado whisked Dorothy and Toto up into a new artificial dreamlike dimension somewhere above the solid ground of Kansas. When Dorothy awakes, she finds herself in the land of Oz. And Dorothy even comments to her little companion, Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. Yeah, that's right. After the bankruptcy, Kansas was no longer just plain old Kansas. It was now capital K, capital S, an artificial corporate venue of the bankrupt United States, newly established federal territory, part of the federal zone, and Dorothy and Toto were in this state now. So, on her journey in this unfamiliar land, Dorothy meets up with three unusual characters, each having certainly a different problem or aspect as portrayed on the silver screen. But their true identity has been decoded and is followed. The first was the Scarecrow, a man of straw, a front, and he identified his straw man persona for Dorothy. Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking. Of course, I'm not bright about doing things. And in this classic song, if I only had a brain, the Scarecrow slash straw man succinctly argued, quote, I'd unravel every riddle for every individual, end quote. And that individual is individual um, in trouble or pain, end quote, I should say. So today, in light of redemption, we would translate it as once one discovers that his straw man exists, all political and legal mysteries, complexities, and confusions are resolved or understood, and once one takes legal title or control to his straw man, he becomes the authorized representative of the straw man to accept and discharge or settle all commercial affairs as in Oz or the new commercial world, aka the Matrix, because the straw man has no brains and no hands and fingers to grasp a pen to write the check, so to speak, to pay the fine, fee, tax, or debt. So the second character was the Tin Man, or capital T, capital I, capital N. This is the acronym, also identified as the T is for tax payer, the I is for identification, and the N is for number. So the Tin Man was a hollow man of metal, a vessel, and a vehicle, or a newly created commercial code word for the straw man. Just like the scarecrow, the Tin Man had no brain and had no heart. Both were artificial persons. Yeah. So one of the definitions of tin in Webster's is counterfeit. That's what it is. That's what tin means, counterfeit. So the Tin Man also represented the mechanical and heartless aspect of commerce and commercial law. Just like they say in the mafia, quote, nothing personal, it's just business, end quote. And in another profession similar to the mafia, the business of lawyering, they have the attitude that it's nothing personal. Quote, business is business, end quote. So the heartless Tin Man also carried an axe, the traditional symbol for God, i.e., modern commercial law and earlier dominant civilizations, including fascist states. So, in the words of the Tin Man, expressing relief at the Dorothy had oiled his rusty points and parts, he said, quote, I've held that axe up for ages, end quote. Okay, stick with me now, stick with me. So the word ace, ACE, is etymologically related to the word X, AX. And in a deck of cards, the only one above the king is the ace, i.e., God. One of the Axis powers of World War II, Italy, was a fascist state. So the symbol for fascism is the fasces, a bundle of rods with an axe bound up in the middle of and its blade projecting. So the fasces may be found on the reverse of the American Mercury head dime. And Roman deity Mercury was the god of commerce. Come on, say it ain't so, Joe. It can also be found on the wall behind and on each side of the Speaker's podium in the United States Senate. Each gilded fasces is approximately 6 feet in height. And at the base of the seal of the United States Senate are two crossed fasces. Let me see if we can see what this is looking like. Yes, I am sharing my damn screen. Okay. Oh, Just this is it. Here you see it on either side. Okay, so the third character that Dorothy met was the Cowardly Lion, or King of Beasts. And as the most feared of all animals in the jungle, it was lacking courage. The lion is symbolic of the once fearless American people who have since lost their courage. Yeah, there are a lot of hot talkers out there. Just listen to your local radio talk shows. American men love to talk, but none have the courage to do a damn thing. The American people are scared of the corporate federal system and local revenue collectors, i.e., or for example, cops and judges in their so called courtrooms or tribunals of justice or commerce. Okay? After your first few go arounds with the just us system, believing there was justice in the courts, you probably lost some of your courage too. And you may not have known it, but the IRS has been dealing with only your straw man or your debtor strictly under the laws of commerce. And they are just like the Tin Man, heartless. So after Dorothy and her three companions made their way to Oz, they had learned that they had to go see the wizard. To find the wizard, they had just to follow the yellow brick road. Gold is known as yellow bricks and are melted into ingots. So all one has to do is follow the trail of American stolen gold, and you will find the thief who stole it. So in the beginning of the movie, the wizard was represented by the traveling mystic Professor Marvel. Yeah, whom Dorothy encountered when she ran away with Toto. So his macabre shingle touted that he was, quote, acclaimed by the crowned heads of Europe, past, present, and future, end quote. Boy, that Professor Marvel must have been a regular wizard to be acclaimed by the future crowned heads of Europe before they were even crowned. Before the bankers stole America, they had long since disempowered the Christian monarchies of Europe and looted their kingdoms. Maybe this Professor Marble fellow knew something about the future that other folks didn't. With a human skull peering down from his painted perch above the door inside his wagon, the good professor lectured Dorothy of the priests of Isis and Osiris and the days of the pharaohs of Egypt. All going to come back to Egypt when it's all said and done. So when Dorothy and her new friends emerged from the forest, they were elated to see the Emerald City before them, only a short jaunt away. Then came the Wicked Witch of the West, desperate for the ruby slippers that Dorothy was wearing as they held special powers. So a significant point here is that in the original book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, published in 1900 or 39 years earlier, the slippers were not red, but silver. In the first cut of the movie, the slippers were silver, but were changed to red to be more colorful. So at the time the book was written, America still had all its gold and silver. The value of 1 ounce of gold was set at 15 ounces of silver, with silver being the more plentiful of the two metals and generally known as, quote, poor man's gold, end quote. So just as the silver slippers carried Dorothy's America's stockpile of silver and gold back into currency, carried the country to a position of preeminence throughout the world at that time. But as mentioned, when the movie came out in 1939, the slippers were not silver, but red. So between 1916 and 1933, most of America's gold was rounded up by the privately owned Federal Reserve banks and shipped off to the Fed owners in England and Germany. The reason for this was that Federal Reserve notes could be redeemed in gold, and the use of Federal Reserve notes carried against an interest penalty that could only be paid in gold. So the American people were defrauded into trading their gold for worthless paper with green ink on it. Our previous currency, United States notes, carried no such interest requirements, but such was the bargain that came with the Federal Reserve notes. The reason JFK was murdered was because he was reissuing United States notes, interest free. Go to any coin store and see or buy a 1963 US, not Federal Reserve, note. When the bankruptcy was declared in 1933, Americans were required or misdirected to turn in all gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates by May 1st, known as May Day. That's the birthday of the communism in Bavaria in 1776. The birthday of the IRS, and celebrated worldwide as the International Workers' Holiday, a holy day to the wizard and his tribe. So, talking to people who were alive at that time, you may find out that the general sentiment towards such thievery bordered on a second revolution. Maybe it was just too much of a clue or too much salt in the wound for Dorothy to be skipping down the yellow brick road in a pair of silver slippers. So that, for whatever reason, a color less likely to annoy or provoke was selected. Yeah, that would be red. Mhm. So, with regard to the choice of ruby or red colored slippers, red's primary significance, at least on documents and the like, is that it is the color of blood, as in flesh and blood, and symbolizes a living, breathing man or woman, i.e., non corporate or non artificial. Stay with me. So the color red could also have been chosen for the related tie to the International Banking Federal Reserve founder, the Rothschilds, aka Red Shield family. So it does signify private as opposed to public. Your new Social Security card has a red serial number on the reverse, signifying the private side. the bond account attached to the public side of your straw man's Social Security account. For postal employees, red sticker registered mail means personal accountability or private. All other mail carries limited liability, which is public. It's likely that the ruby slippers symbolize the American people with blood in their veins as opposed to citizens of the United States. Strawman with the counterfeit or corporate blood of blue or black ink on a death certificate. No matter the color in the movie, the Wicked Witch of the West wanted those slippers at any cost and had to move fast before Dorothy and her crew could make it to Emerald City. So the witch's tactic was to cover the countryside with poppy flowers or poppies, the source of heroin, opium, and morphine, symbolically drugging them, the American people, into unconsciousness and then just walks in and snatch the slippers. In other words, the best way to subjugate the American people and boost the goods was to dull their senses by getting them hooked on drugs. Note, LSD was created the same year in 1939 by Dr. Albert Hoffman. The poppies or drugs worked on Dorothy, the lion, and Toto, our flesh and blood friends, but had no effect on the scarecrow or the Tin Man, the artificial entities. The two of them cried out for help, and Glenda, the good witch of the north, answered their prayers with a blanket of snow, aka cocaine, a stimulant nullifying the narcotic effect of the poppies or opium on Dorothy. So the lion and on Dorothy, the lion, and Toto. So at this writing, aside from marijuana, the two most the two most available drugs on the streets of America were heroin and cocaine in their various forms. As they all scampered toward Emerald City, the city of green, Federal Reserve notes, the fiat money or money by decree, we heard the Munchkins singing on the glory of the wizard's creation. And if I knew how the song go, I would try to sing it, but I don't, and so I won't, and that's good for you. Yeah, so see where I'm at. So that's good for you. How could I have lost my place that fast? I hope this is not a sign that okay, so as they all scampered toward Emerald City, the city of green, or Federal Reserve notes, the new fiat or money by decree, we heard the Munchkins singing on the glory of the wizard's creation. Yeah, I was gonna sing this but didn't know how. So you're out of the woods, you're out of the woods, you're out of the dark, you're out of the night, step into the sun, step into the light, keep straight ahead for the most glorious place on the face of the earth or the stars. So, and I know that song didn't go anything like that, if indeed there really was a song. So the foregoing jingle abounds with luminous slash Luciferian symbols and metaphors regarding darkness and light. So the Wicked Witch of the West made her home in a round medieval watchtower, ancient symbol of the Knights Templar of Freemasonry, who are given to practicing witchcraft and also credited as the originators of modern banking. That's circa 1099 AD. So the Wicked Witch of the West was also dressed in black, the color symbolizing the planet Saturn, sacred icon of the Knights Templar, and the color of choice of judges and priests for their robes. So, who was the Wicked Witch of the West? Remember, in the first part of the film, her counterpart was Almira Gulch, who, according to Aunt M, owned half the country. So, Miss Gulch alleged that Dorothy's dog, Toto, had bitten her. She came to the farm with an order from the sheriff demanded that they surrender Toto to her custody. Aunt M was not immediately cooperative and answered Mrs. Gulch's allegations that Toto had bitten her with, he's really gentle, gentle with people, that is. Could gentle really mean Gentile? When Miss Gulch defied them to withhold Toto and go against the law, dear old Aunt M was relegated to punishing the party line for Big Brother. She dutifully succumbed to the pressure and counseled Dorothy reluctantly. Does this sound like most American people? We can't go against the law, Dorothy. I'm afraid poor Toto will have to go. When Dorothy refused to surrender Toto, Miss Gulch slashed out. Well, if you don't hand that dog over, I'll bring a damn suit that'll take your whole farm. Oh, she said the F word. So today, 70% of all attorneys in the world reside in the West. 70% of all attorneys on this planet reside in the West. That's America, to be exact. And 95% of all lawsuits in the world are filed under U.S. jurisdiction. So the Wicked Witch of the West and Miss Gulch, dear friends, represent judges and attorneys. For example, the American legal system, including the attorney run U.S. Congress, there are the executioners and primary henchmen for transferring all wealth in America from the people over to the banks and the government. The Wicked Witch of the West wanted the silver slippers, the precious metals, and her counterpart, Mrs. Gulch, wanted to take Toto. So, what does the word Toto mean? And attorney language, i.e., Latin. Uh, everything. Yeah, Toto in Latin means everything. That's what she wants. So Dorothy and her three companions finally made their way to Emerald City. They sought an audience before the wizard, were taken inside and brought before the wizard. A gigantic image speaking in a loud voice behind glass, similar to smoke and mirrors. Dorothy and the gang fell for the wizard's illusion, power, and commands in the beginning. But it was little Toto who, by his instinct, pulled the curtain back to expose the fraud of the wizard, a front man for the wizard, an agent for the fiction. This wizard the people feared. So the wizard, this gigantic image speaking in a loud voice behind glass, could very well symbolize, with the advent of television, the power of government speaking lies before the people via TV. Because if the people saw it on TV, it must be true. And of course, the people will believe their government, won't they? Remember the drugs? But Dorothy and the others soon wised up and revealed the wizard for what he was, a confidence man. Then, when asking the agent or administrative agencies about helping the scarecrow or straw man about getting the brain, he gave the straw man a piece of paper and a diploma from the university. The wizard also cited the land of E pluribus unum, or unum, which is Latin for, quote, out of many, end quote, i.e., converting the many into one new world order, or novus ordo seclorum. That's a Latin phrase placed on the American $1 bill shortly after the bankruptcy. He also proudly revealed or confessed that he was born and bred in the heart of the Western wilderness, in old Kansas City, man, myself. He gave the Tin Man a ticker or clock to sound like a heart, but it was not. And to the lion, he gave a medal to signify that the lion had courage. These all, of course, were mere trinkets in the land of Oz, a fictional world, of course. The bankers did pretty well in Europe, but as the wizard pointed out, they made a killing in the Western wilderness, i.e., America, with the theft of American gold, labor, and property, quoted John D. Rockefeller. Grateful and responsive rural folk who populated the country at that time. Okay. So when Dorothy asked Glenda, the good witch of the North, representing honesty, good faith, and Christianity, for help in getting back to Kansas, Glenda replied, "You don't need to be helped. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas. Just click your heels together 3 times, 3 days, that's the truth in lending, and say, there's no place like home." Translation: you've always had the right and power to reclaim your sovereignty. You just forgot or were never taught that you or the American people have such power. The Oregon Bill of Rights says the people have all power. Since the people are the true sovereign power, then it is only necessary to wait from the dumbed down, drug like effect the powers that be have over you and the American people as to that power and position, and then exercise it. So, the actual reclaiming of your sovereignty, the remedy in today's bankrupt commercial world, is a process including a UCC-1 form to the Secretary of State, and a chargeback invoice with bill of exchange to the Secretary of the Treasury, U.S., wherein you can take commercial control of your straw man with a TIN number and charge up your UCC contract trust account so that you can discharge the debt of your debtor. Americans have intimate firsthand knowledge of the heartless mechanics of the laws of commerce, religiously applied by the example of the unregistered foreign agents of the Internal Revenue Service. So the IRS, accounting firm and collection agency for the private Federal Reserve Bank, was constituted under the UCC at its inception in 1954 and has been operating strictly in that realm ever since. And as a side note, how was the Wicked Witch destroyed? By accident. A bucket of water, the true substance of all things, good and healthy, simple water, H2O, destroyed the evil just like the O in ozone destroys virus and bacteria or cancer, did the oxygen in the water destroyed the evil witch. So you may have wondered what the meaning is behind the words in the title, The Wizard of Oz. Look them up in a dictionary. Like almost everything else, is right out there in the open for you to see if you would just look closely enough. One definition of wizard is, quote, a very clever or skilled person, end quote. Oz, quote, Oz is an abbreviation of Onza, Onza, the Italian word for ounce or ounces, the unit of measurement of gold, silver, and other precious metals. No matter how large the quantity of gold or silver being discussed, the amount is always expressed in ounces. For example, rather than hundreds of tons of gold, it's so many million ounces of gold, okay? As attested by the factual history of this country, the Wizard of Oz was the Wizard of Ounces. And you see that OZ for Oz is the abbreviation for ounces. And who took the gold that backed the American money? Why, the bankers and the lawyers working for the foreign principals and the private Federal Reserve, constituting the 20 Class A stockholders, being mostly private bankers, all orchestrated and greased the politicians then and still today. Only because it is not the mindset of politicians today to correct the matter and put full the absolute power over the control, creation, minting, and put it into circulation of United States money backed by gold, substance, and value. What everyone has to understand is that as these things are today, the commercial system as in place is better for everyone, just as long as everyone understands the program. Maybe the Wizard of Oz back then was the introduction to the program as to the monetary condition of or and changes in American. It just appears that no one told or gave full disclosure to the American people not only of the change, but how to operate in this new commercial world where all the real value was removed and all that was put in its place was commercial paper or fiat. Everything worked out for Dorothy, for example. The American people, in the end, she made it home, meaning there is remedy in law. It's there. It was just encoded and disguised and camouflaged. Okay? Fortunately, the code has been cracked and there is a way home, just like in the movie. Like Dorothy said, there's no place like home, and there isn't. There's nothing like sovereignty for a sovereign people. We have commercial remedy in the redemption process. So, will you continue to be conned by the confidence men and believe the wizard's words coming out from the box of smoke and mirrors called television? Or will you wise up like Dorothy did and look behind the scenes to recognize the scheme? Will you rise above the occasion and obtain the knowledge to become a secured party creditor or private banker and sovereign to take your place among others who are above the government instead of being that debtor slave on the plantation, living your life in debt and servitude? It's your choice. Dorothy did it a long time ago to show the American people and maybe the children the way, how to do it, and that it can be done. Now go rent or buy the movie and see it again for the first time with your eyes wide open. For all intents and purposes, there are only debtors or creditors in America. No law. Only the law of contracts and agreements and commercial paper. So follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the money trail. And with that being read, I know you see this. I know you see it. Matrix, the first movie. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's time to come out of the dark. Matrix Reloaded, the second movie. Yeah. I know you want more. I did. And so, as I said, whenever I find gems inside my mind, as well as others, other formats, I'm going to bring it to you. So, you know, I'm going to want to cover a lot of this redemption manual, even though it's not the real deal. There is 682 pages worth of shit that we can go and use right here, right now for free. And with that being read, and with that being said, Yahsinni is not going to bed. Yeah. So, yeah. I've been wanting to bring you that. I was hoping that I would have one of my brothers come up and dismantle this redemption manual with me, and that very well could still happen. And so that's why I got getting these little pieces out the way. And I promise you, I'm gonna be back with one of my boys, and we're gonna break this shit down, because that's what we do.